You seal yourself in your basement shelter to survive the fallout. Hour 4, breathing feels labored. Hour 8, severe headaches begin. Hour 12, you are making impaired decisions about whether to unseal the door. Hour 16, unconsciousness. The thing killing you is not radiation seeping through the walls. It is carbon dioxide building up from your own breath. The bunker industry sells a $3,000 NBC filtration system to solve this problem. Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the facility that enriched uranium for the Manhattan Project, solved it in 1979 with cardboard, cloth, and wooden dowels. Total cost, $15. One system requires electricity that will not exist after EMP. The other works indefinitely with human power. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to build the one that works, why the expensive version solves a different problem, and why government civil defense programs recommended the cheap solution before the industry buried it. A family of 4 in a sealed 200-square-foot basement shelter generates dangerous carbon dioxide levels within 8 to 10 hours. Each person exhales 0.02 cubic meters of carbon dioxide per hour. In an enclosed space, this creates a timeline more dangerous than the radiation outside. At 3% concentration, you experience severe headaches and labored breathing. At 5%, loss of consciousness occurs within 30 minutes. Kress and Kearny's research at Oak Ridge National Laboratory documented this precisely. Sealed shelters without ventilation reach critical carbon dioxide levels before external fallout radiation peaks. FEMA's own field tests in 1978 found that ventilation failures cause shelter abandonment more frequently than radiation exposure. Test subjects in expedient shelters left within 18 to 30 hours despite dangerous external radiation, not because of fallout, but because carbon dioxide buildup and heat made the shelter uninhabitable. The Swiss Civil Defense Manual, considered the international gold standard, lists ventilation as the primary life support requirement in shelters ahead of water or food. Here is the physics everyone misses. Fallout radiation outside your shelter decreases on a predictable curve. For every 7-fold increase in time after detonation, radiation intensity drops by a factor of 10. After 48 hours, external levels may be 1% of initial readings, but carbon dioxide inside your shelter increases linearly every hour you breathe. The radiation threat is declining while the air threat is escalating. You built the shelter to protect against the external hazard, but the internal atmosphere becomes lethal first. The bunker industry sells NBC filtration systems for $2,000 to $3,000. These units feature HEPA filters rated to capture 0.3 micron particles, activated charcoal beds for chemical agents, blast valves, and powered blowers. They are engineered for nerve gas, anthrax spores, and sustained nuclear exchange scenarios requiring weeks of sealed occupancy. For fallout, the scenario 99% of civilian shelter occupants will actually face. This is the wrong tool for the wrong problem. Fallout particles are 1 to 20 microns in diameter. These are radioactive dust and debris, 50 to 100 times larger than the biological agents that NBC systems are designed to filter. These particles are heavy, they settle. Within 24 to 48 hours after detonation, airborne fallout concentrations drop dramatically as particles fall to the ground. The air itself is not radioactive. The particles in it are, and they land on surfaces. Once settled, incoming air from above ground level is relatively clean. You are not filtering gamma radiation. Gamma rays are blocked by the mass in your walls, concrete, earth sandbags. Your air filter does not stop gamma. What it does is force air through restrictive media designed to capture molecular scale threats. That restriction requires powered blowers. Most systems need electricity or hand crank generators. In a post-detonation scenario with EMP effects and grid collapse, that power does not exist. A $3,000 filtration system without electricity is an expensive sealed box that does not move air. It does not solve carbon dioxide buildup. It becomes the thing that kills you. The industry took a real problem. Shelter occupants need breathable air. Then it sold the most expensive possible solution engineered for a different threat. An NBC filter solving a chemical warfare problem and a simple pump solving a carbon dioxide problem achieve identical outcomes for fallout. They move air. One costs $3,000 and requires power. The other costs $15 and runs on human effort indefinitely. The physics does not care which one you bought. Crescent Kearny was a Rhodes Scholar, a decorated World War II veteran, and a civil defense researcher at Oak Ridge National Laboratory from the 1960s through the 1980s. Oak Ridge, the facility that enriched uranium for the Manhattan Project. He did not theorize about shelter conditions. He built expedient shelters and brought families to Oak Ridge to live in them for days. Children, elderly, ordinary people, not soldiers. He measured temperatures, carbon dioxide levels, physical effort, and psychological stress. The Kearny Air Pump emerged from those field tests. His design philosophy was explicitly anti-commercial. No advanced materials requiring supply chains, no electrical systems depending on grids, no specialized knowledge requiring experts, no expensive equipment excluding average families. The requirement, buildable by the people who will use it from materials at hand within hours. Nuclear War Survival Skills was published by Oak Ridge in 1979, updated in 1987, and placed in the public domain by the federal government. Taxpayer-funded research made permanently free. Complete construction plans in Appendix B. This was the official civil defense recommendation for expedient shelter ventilation. Not a backup option, the primary solution. FEMA distributed it through the 1980s in official publications. Then civil defense funding died. Soviet collapse, budget cuts, institutional priorities shifted. By the 1990s, the programs that taught this were gone. The knowledge got archived instead of transmitted. Private bunker companies filled the vacuum, selling solutions to problems the government had already solved cheaply decades earlier. The Kearny Air Pump is a displacement pump made from a hinged flap suspended in a frame. Construction materials include poster board or cardboard for the flap, wood scraps or bamboo for the frame, cloth for one-way valves, string or tape for the hinge, and duct tape for assembly. Total material cost is $10 to $15. Build time is 2 to 3 hours using scissors and basic tools. The flap dimensions are approximately 3 feet by 2 feet, which is 6 square feet of surface area. Mount it in a wooden frame with a cloth hinge along one edge and attach a pull handle to the opposite edge. Hang lightweight fabric over the intake and exhaust ports to create one-way valves. When you pull the handle toward you, the flap moves back, creating low pressure that draws AIR in through the intake valve, while the exhaust valve stays closed from back pressure. Push the handle away and the flap forces air out through the exhaust while the intake valve seals. Each stroke displaces approximately 3 cubic feet of air. At 30 strokes per minute, a sustainable effort for children and elderly, the pump moves 90 cubic feet per minute. A family of 6 requires 18 to 30 cubic feet per minute to prevent carbon dioxide buildup. 6 minutes of pumping per hour maintains safe ventilation. The operator can rotate shifts. Anyone can run it. The intake filter is a damp cloth stretched over the opening. Fallout particles are dust-sized, 1 to 20 microns. A wet bedsheet stops them. This is not HEPA filtration capturing viruses. You are filtering particles large enough to see as dust. By the time you need ventilation, fallout has been settling for hours. Particle concentration in incoming air is already dropping. The cloth catches remaining dust. You are not filtering gamma radiation. Your mass walls handle gamma. The wet fabric stops radioactive particles from entering. Material cost? 1 old t-shirt. Compare this to the NBC system. $3,000 buys HEPA filters for biological agents, activated charcoal for chemical weapons, powered blowers that require electricity, and replacement filters costing $200 to $400 every 6 to 12 months. For fallout, where the air is clean after particles settle, and the primary threat is carbon dioxide you generate inside, the expensive system's advantages only matter if your threat is nerve gas or anthrax. If your scenario is fallout from a distant detonation, the overwhelmingly likely civilian case, you paid $2,985 extra for protection against a different threat. The Kearny pump has no sales funnel, no manufacturer, no profit margin. That is why nobody sells it. The plans are public domain, free, exactly as Oak Ridge intended. Federal civil defense programs were systematically defunded after the Soviet Union collapsed. Peak funding occurred between 1979 and 1983. FEMA was created, Kearny's research was published, and shelter programs were active. In 1991, the Soviet collapse accelerated cuts. Defense Authorization Acts began cutting civil defense budgets. FEMA's mission shifted from nuclear preparedness to natural disaster response. By the mid-1990s, public education programs were discontinued. The Shelter Sign program marking public fallout shelters officially ended, and FEMA stopped printing civil defense literature. By 2001, institutional knowledge retired with the generation that built it. Anyone under 40 had never participated in civil defense education. The expertise vacuum filled with private companies, including Rising S Bunkers, Atlas Survival Shelters, and Vivos, selling turnkey solutions for $50,000 to $500,000. The business model required expensive products. Nobody profits from teaching $15 solutions. The knowledge still exists in government archives. Kearny's manual remains in the public domain, available from FEMA repositories and the Oregon Institute of Science and Medicine. But it stopped being promoted. If you search fallout shelter ventilation today, the results show companies selling nuclear biological chemical systems, not government documents teaching expedient pumps. The physics did not change. What changed is who profits from the solution. Oak Ridge solved this in 1979 with cardboard and string. The bunker industry solved it in 2024 with a $3,000 product that requires electricity. The physics of carbon dioxide buildup did not change between those years. What changed is who was selling the solution. The Kearny Air Pump plans are linked below, free and in the public domain, exactly as the Department of Energy intended when they published this research.